Welcome to the Hey Soul Sista podcast, where Mel Histon will guide you through life's big questions and bring you one step closer to doing this crazy journey as best you can.
Hey Soul Sisters, I've got my mindfulness guru, wise woman and great girl Charlotta Thaarup with me in the studio today. Hey Charlotta.
Hi darling.
We're just laughing because I just said to her, I call her, just in everyday life, I'm always prefix Charlotta with my mindfulness guru, Charlotta.
Which is weird. I'm thinking how much it matches my inner experience.
But that's like everyone, right?
Indeed.
Because people on the outside, people see us one way and internally we see us another way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except I'm going to say for my sister Roshi. Roshi goes, I was talking to so-and-so and they were saying that you're really great. And I'm like, no, she's not. She's a doofus. Keeping it real.
Yes.
But seriously, so Charlotta, for those of you who haven't listened to Hey Soul Sista before, Charlotta is, in addition to being an amazing mindfulness guru, Charlotta works with corporates around the world and teaching them around mindful practice in the workplace. Is that right? Would you say?
Yep. And mindful leadership.
And mindful leadership. And you've worked all over the world.
Yep.
Yeah. And with some really, really big corporates globally.
Yeah. And lots of gorgeous people.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that about you. I love that you work on a really big scale, but then you still have clients at home that you do one-on-one work with.
Yeah, I think it's important to have the kind of the range, right? And I've always had that in my life. I think, you have to always be open to those who cannot afford to go and see somebody, but who desperately need it.
Yeah. Well, I know that you have helped me so much after in the last 12 or 13 years when I've had mini crises, or I'm trying to sort something out in my head and want to do it in a mature way, not immature way. Yeah. So I'm so grateful for you. And also you're an author. You do a lot of writing. You record meditations.
Yeah.
And spread the word, I guess, around how we can all live a more soulful life. Mindfulness and mindfulness practice.
Showing up as decent human beings, as curious and engaged. Yep.
Yeah. So today, Charlotta and I are going to talk about something called the hero's journey. And we're both so excited. So I had not really heard of the hero's journey until recently. When I was going through a challenging time, I was very upset. I was even brought to tears. I think I might have even been almost sobbing. And I'm generally not a crier. So I was pretty upset. I was being talked about in a really negative way, and I guess I felt really hard done by, I guess. But I had turned that. I didn't understand why. And, like so many of us do, when something happens to you, I went into this internal spiral, pulling myself down in this whole self-shame and blame spiral. I was totally pulling myself apart. And so I went to Charlotta for guidance. And Charlotta said to me, oh, darling, it's the hero's journey. This is part of your hero's journey. I was saying that in my best Danish accent. But I love that. I remember you said that and I was like, oh. And then, we started talking. You started sharing with me what the hero's journey is. So, my friend, today, let's actually talk about that. Because I think, and as we've shared before with each other, that, many of us go through the hero's journey.
All the time. And I think that in your case with that situation, it really helps to frame it like that, because then we go, all right, I'm going to get some bruises. It's part of the deal. Whereas some of the pain is, we think, particularly when we do good out there, we think everyone should love me and see me for who I am. And then when people say horrible things or don't appreciate us or do that, we think, this is too hard. This is really not unfair. But actually, it's part of the deal. It is just part of the deal. It's part of the hero's journey. Every film we've ever watched with somebody who takes up a challenge, they get hurt.
Yeah.
And you get hurt.
And that's what you said to me. You were like, this is part of the gig. This is part of your journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the hero's journey? We've been talking about it for 5 minutes. We're going to now actually talk about what the hero's journey is. Charlotte, do you want to open that?
Yeah. Because it was identified by Joseph Campbell, the amazing Joseph Campbell, who took about 4 or 5 years out of his life to read. He just read and read and read. He particularly interested in mythology, but literature overall. And after that, he found that there was a theme, there was a common rhythm, a structure to all of this literature, keeping in mind it's written by men, for men, about men, right?
Yes.
And that he then published a book called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, so that, you know, we all do the hero's journey in a grand, small way every day. It's part of life that we take on a challenge. And we can talk about the steps and specifically, but, you know, we live in our little life, we take on a challenge and we go out, we go forth with this challenge, and in that we have a battle of some sort, and then we deal with that, and then we return wiser and more complete. That's kind of the idea. And we know it from every single American film, pretty much.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah, so let's leave it there, because there's a different hero's journey for women, and there's probably something missing in this. But the hero's journey itself is something that applies to, well, at that time it was really a masculine, a man's journey, if you like. But now that we have two individuals in the world, both men and females, I think it applies just as much to women. This whole thing of, it's about agency, it's about separation, it's about growing up and standing firm in who you want to be and who you're showing up to be. So it's really important to say it's about agency and separation. Individualization is the word. Is that the word?
I think
did I say it right? You know what I mean.
Sorry.
Individualization is the word.
Yes. Yep. And so Joseph talked about 12 steps, and I'll quickly name the steps, but really, you know, when I look at those steps, I go, that's probably, there's a fair bit of detail there, but really, you know, there are a few key steps, I kind of think. So he talked about, you know, really that, you know, you start off with the status quo, living your life, that a hero receives a call to adventure, a call to action, to do something, be something, start something, that the hero receives assistance, that they leave home to go on a trial, or go on that adventure, that journey, that they face different trials, that they end up facing their worst fear, which I wonder for me if that was the whole... Yeah, I don't know if that was my worst fear, probably not. You know, when I came to you all upset that time, but anyway, in the
You
whole...
just have to take another journey.
Yeah. But the hero faces their worst fear. Mm-hmm. They face crisis at, you know, the hero's darkest hour, that they find some treasure, that they have a result, that they end up returning back home, and that they are changed in some way, or people are changed in some way. So there's a bit of detail there, but really it's about that whole going out on a journey, facing trials and challenges, finding something, the treasure, or something that
And making a difference.
Want to save your soul? Review us on Apple Podcast.
So, you know, it is what we applaud most in our society, right? You know, with somebody who climbed Mount Everest, or somebody whose loved one is ill and therefore they pursue investment in medical research or whatever. You know, it's that kind of movement, or, you know, and often, not always, but often it's about a call to making the world better. It's not just, I mean, climbing Mount Everest is a personal journey, but sometimes it's also about making the world better. And they're particularly the stories we like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to share about a time where you've been on a hero's journey?
Well, I think, to be honest, there are many, you know, very small ones and medium-sized ones and bigger ones. Probably the biggest one would probably be being an immigrant. I think every immigrant is on a hero's journey. Yeah. You know, you have this situation at home. Well, in my situation, everything was fine. Like, I could have easily just stayed at home, but I had this desire. And then somebody came and called me and said, "Would you like to go to Australia?" And I went, "Oh, yeah." I picked it up and then off I went, and it was, you know, interesting and bumpy and challenging. But I think the journey ride of the immigrant is kind of, you leave home and then you go to establish yourself, right? And there are all the challenges there, that because you don't have a network, you don't have security. So yeah, that would probably be my biggest one, most obvious one. But also just, letting go of a job and starting my own business. That's also a hero's journey,
Absolutely.
isn't it?
That's a really big one. Because you face a lot of fear and challenges when you leave a job and you start a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are, but I think that the thing is that it's served up as a complete cycle almost, and it's not, because even when you finish or you feel that this is almost done, this project, it just leads on to something else, doesn't it? So the next journey is born out of the previous, if you like. So it's ongoing, it's life.
Yes, and well, I'm going to share a hero's journey, one particular hero's journey that I've been on, and that is, I've got it on 2 years ago. I decided that Got You Back Sister, that we would make a short film around domestic violence through the eyes of a child. And I had actually seen that there was a grant available, an arts and culture grant through the City of Newcastle. And so I had seen that. And that was kind of like my calling, because I saw that and I'm like, we could apply for that. And imagine if we could do a short film telling the story of domestic violence through the eyes of a child. And that was my call to action, the beginning of the journey. And it was such a big journey, even though it was kind of like an 18-month journey, but I faced a lot of trials. Number one, actually decided to do it. But number two, I was looking for assistants who could be a part of this. And I'd find someone and then they'd be like, oh yeah, no, sorry, I can't be involved. Find someone else. Yeah, no, I can't be involved. And that was a real challenge. And then I found somebody to be involved, and we started working together. And then there were a few times I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if this is all going to come together. Not that we had disagreements or anything like that, but we probably saw things a little bit differently.
And there was COVID too, wasn't there?
And there was COVID. COVID happened. So all these challenges were coming up. And I remember there was one point in time I thought I was going to have to chuck it all in. There was just too many challenges there. And I was like, what the hell was I thinking making a short film? Who do I think I am? I've never done this before. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to go give the money back to council and go back with my tail between my legs and go, I failed. I couldn't make it. But then I was like, that isn't really an option. And actually, do you know what? I had to go into problem solving. How am I going to, I can work my way through this. I have to work my way through it. And then we ended up making the short film. We had to delay the launch because of COVID, but we launched it. And the wonderful thing was when I saw the impact of that short film on the people who have seen it and they've reached out to say, what an impact it made on them. And it certainly changed my way of viewing domestic violence and the impact that it does have on children who, even if the violence isn't directed towards them, they are witnessing it and they're feeling it. Yeah, they're impacted by it. I was forever changed, and that's the coming home as with a new knowledge, a new gift, or a new understanding of the world.
Yes, having achieved something and also contributed something.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, I was also thinking that, the role of your charity, Got Your Back Sister, is kind of that assistance, that the hand reaching out to the hero's journey of some of the women leaving domestic violence.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a hero's journey. Right?
That is the ultimate hero's journey, because it takes so much courage and bravery to leave and to start your life again.
Yes. So we can then see how can we be supportive of those on the journey where we know it's a wobbly journey. It's always a wobbly journey.
It's such a wobbly journey. And I think as well, part of the hero's journey is assistance, is people coming in to your journey on the way and providing assistance.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. That's what Got You Back Sister does, but that's what we can all do, is provide assistance to people who are on their journey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wonderful if it was that simple and we all just did that?
Right. But it helps to know the framework, I think, of a hero's journey, right? Yep. I think it helps.
Yep. Now, you mentioned something before about how when Joseph Campbell wrote about the hero's journey, that it was very masculine focused, and that actually with the way the world is now, that actually we kind of need to see and embrace that in a more feminine way. Can you talk us through what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I first want to sort of preface it with saying I am by no way an expert in this, but it just struck me that the hero's journey is the masculine journey within all of us, men and women. It's not about gender. It describes this sort of the individualization, right? The separation, the agency, the going out in the world and standing firm. And what's the missing part? What's the yin yang to that, right? And that's the surrendering and the receiving and being open to and appreciating connection with others, connection with the earth. That's the missing part, right? And I suppose you could see it that our culture is very masculine. So it is, they're the ones we applaud, whereas the other is sort of something that lives a little on in the shadows, a little, I think, of that. But nonetheless, certainly just as important. I work with a lot of very successful men who have been amazing at the hero's journey. They're standing at the pinnacle and they're going, yeah, but when will the anxiety stop? When will I feel really calm and good? When will it stop? And that's because we're lopsided. We just focus on the one versus going, well, how are we traveling? How are we integrating this, knowing the effects on the planet, knowing the effects on others, taking moments to celebrate, to appreciate. So really, it's sort of the two sides of the same thing, but we've just focused on one side, if you like, which is the masculine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely, it makes sense. It's true, and I suppose that's where I feel as though when I was younger in my 20s, when I think about entering the workforce, starting a career, it was all very masculine focused. Whereas now I go, it's really wonderful that is shifting slowly.
Yes.
That we're having and embracing more feminine qualities in the workplace, but also in life, you know what I mean? We're starting to hold those up as something that we want to be and hold, and that's okay, rather than celebrating being the male, the masculine, being really driven.
Yeah, and that conventional notion of success, right?
Yep.
Because it has inherently in it some really serious problems, right? It's like the fairy tales where now they married or they found each other, everything, and then as if everything's perfect. And we know now it really starts, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's also some interesting, when you reflect back on some of the traditional stories, the way women are depicted is often that our hero's journey is actually to get the man.
Do you know what it is? In most rom-coms, movies and fairy tales, it's about getting the man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we have to look at that and go, because that's not the case for the man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
His is to actually be in a situation where he will be a good provider often, right? A stable person who's kind of shown himself as a man. So I think we have to look at this sort of with a little critical eye as well and going, what is the heroine's journey? And I think also, there's the whole thing of, for both men and women, we are born into a certain family, and the hero's journey is about separating from that family, right? And standing on our own 2 feet. And so it is has a different texture if you're a man or a woman or however you identify, right? Because what are you liberating from most? As a woman, it is the mother, that whole thing of how do I show up in the world as a female, right? There's a whole lot around that, which is different between the genders, I would think.
Yeah.
But I don't know much about it. I just think that it's a different imprint that women would have to men, and also people who identify as other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesistercode.com.
So Joseph Campbell talks about the idea that no matter what we do, we are all following our own hero's journey, and that there's a strong correlation between the hero's journey, the story of all our lives, and that, in his opinion, that what we need to strive for, what we need to do, is things that fill us with the most joy. And he used the term that we should follow our bliss.
Oh, I don't know what it is. I found Joseph Campbell in the 80s, which just shows how old I am. And I've used that follow your bliss almost every day since. It just melts my heart.
Well, it's funny. I was on a biz retreat last week, and the facilitator was talking about that. He mentioned follow your bliss, and then I was doing some research on Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and saw that that he was like, we should all follow our bliss.
Because, I mean, I'll tell a little story that was one of the ones I heard that he shared early on about the hero's journey, and also how it can lead us to, and follow your bliss, how it can lead us to the ultimate realization of that we're one. And so he shares the story around, that was in the paper in San Francisco, around two policemen come driving along, and there was somebody obviously contemplating suicide, and the person had already kind of slipped over. So they stopped, and one of them grabbed this person, but in doing so, he kind of risked his own life. And then the other policeman went out and grabbed him and actually saved both of them. And so then the journalist had been asked, why would you do that? This person wanted to die. Why would you? You both have young families. Why would you risk your life for that? And the answer that one of them gave is, because I couldn't have lived another day if I hadn't.
Wow.
And Joseph Campbell says that's because at that point, being confronted so intensely with death, you come to the realization that we're one. All the boundaries around who we are, the individualization melts away, and we are one consciousness in that split second. So you say, so that's part of following the bliss, that the bliss will take us to the realization of oneness. So in a way, the hero's journey, if we're opening the heart to it, will take us to the feminine. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, I love that. I hadn't thought about that when you first told me about the hero's journey and my tears and everything. Yeah. So there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's rich territory.
Yeah.
So we are only just dabbling. And
But what I love, and this is the reason why I wanted to do this topic today, was that when you talked me through that, and kind of said to me, oh, darling, you're on the hero's journey. And you explained to me what that was. And you described an image of it was an English heroine. What was her name?
Oh, I can never remember. It's Bodera or something like that.
But you described this picture of a woman standing there with the wind in her hair, and she's kind of been going through a challenging time, going through a journey, and she's got bruises all over her from being in wars and things, but that she keeps going. And I remember you said that to me, you just need to keep going, because I was like, maybe I should chuck it in. And you're like, no, you need to keep going. This is the whole point, is that you're going to get bruises on your hero's journey, but you keep going. And I suppose that really struck me, and it made me realize, number one, I'm not alone, that so many other people go through their own hero's journey, and that they face those challenges and bruises and trials and tribulations, I guess. But we keep going, and because the reward is there, and the change and the impact that we have is there. We just need to get to that point.
Yeah, but I think it's also about changing the expectations. I think we've ingested the idea that if that life should be cruisy, and when something happens, we think, well, that's a problem, that shouldn't happen. But that's part of life.
Yeah,
life is getting bruised. We will be bruised, because otherwise we're just we're living too sheltered.
Yeah.
Let's get soulful on social media. Search the Sister Code Facebook page and follow us on Instagram.
And so Joseph Campbell said, in the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure that you seek. When I read that, I'm like, so that's why we go on the hero's journey.
Yes.
Because there's treasure there somewhere.
Yes. And when we really allow that to stir our hearts, we might sort of sense, what is my greatest fear? What is yours, Mel? What is your cave? What's in your cave?
My greatest fear? That it'll all fall apart.
And what will happen then?
Do you know what? It will all fall apart, and that I will end up... I remember there was a point in my life where I had separated from my first husband, and I was in my 20s, so I was still really young, and my life just felt totally out of control, totally chaotic. I was struggling to make ends meet, and just felt like, my life was a mess. And it was the worst feeling in the world. So that's in my cave.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yes.
And sometimes it's more like, for me, I think it's the whole thing of being vulnerable. I think that's a daily kind of cave that I have to challenge myself with, to really sort of surrender the idea of knowing and expose myself, if you like.
But do you know what? And I'm going to say this because I'm sure it may resonate with many a woman out there who's listening. Separation from my first husband, I'm now very, very, very happily married with my second husband, but my first husband, that was a hero's journey in itself. That was the hardest journey that I've been on. Yeah. And it lasted until my son turned 18. It was really tough, and it was difficult because my then husband, it was like, right now you need to be punished. Right. That's what it was like. It was like, now, you've been a bad girl, you've left me. Actually, now I'm going to make everything as hard as possible for you. And, I have so many metaphorical bruises from that whole period in my life. And I remember thinking to myself many a time, I think he would only be happy if I was curled up if I was curled up in the corner of the room in the fetal position, rocking back and forth, a shell of a person. I think that would make him happy. But I remember thinking, no, I can't live my life. Actually, there was a reason why I left, and that's because I needed happiness in my life and peace and calm for myself and my son. And and so that was a lot of years of bruises and battering emotionally. But I now go, I'm live a wonderful life and I'm very happy.
And so I think for many who have left a difficult relationship, men and women, and who are facing the other partner being abusive, it's a daily demand to be the hero, isn't it?
It's
to show
hard.
up as a decent person in relation to your children. And sometimes we fail, absolutely. But it is an ongoing calling, isn't it? When you're dealing, particularly if you're not dealing with a narcissistic ex who manipulates the children and that kind of thing, it's enormously challenging.
Absolutely. But I just remember thinking, I have a choice. I can actually end up in the corner of the room in the fetal position, rocking back and forth metaphorically, or maybe not.
Depends on the day.
Or do you know what? I've got to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to show up. I have to be the best I can be for my son. I have to be the best I can be for myself. And I have to keep going because the alternative is not great. And I can reflect now. Now I'm in my late 40s. I'm not in my 20s anymore. And I can go, yeah, I've made it through that.
And I suppose, you're blessed with that level of resilience, right? Which is a combination of not having been too damaged early on in your life and perhaps faith in life and disposition. And others don't have quite the same amount of that.
Well, it's funny. And it was a voice of my father in my head going, I didn't raise you to deal with. I didn't raise you to be like this, to be downtrodden.
Right.
He used to say, I didn't raise you to be like that, to be downtrodden.
What a good voice to have inside, right?
I raised you to be an independent, thriving woman. And that used to keep me going. My father didn't raise me to be sitting crying in the corner of the room. He raised me to be an independent, good woman.
Yeah. What a good sort of back support for the hero's journey.
Absolutely. Yes. So
can I just say also, for instance, books like Eat, Love and Pray, or what was that diary that was famous a few years ago? Somebody's diary. What was that?
Not the Diary of Anne Frank.
No. Oh, that's a hero's journey.
That's the total hero's journey.
Yes. Yeah, no, the more ordinary one. The girl, Bridget Jones's
diary.
Yes, diary. And I think, with that, we're so addicted to the idea of the hero's journey, then rather than leave it in a bit more of a tense, exciting place where she didn't reunite with a man, we just close the loop and then it becomes ordinary.
Yeah.
Like I so often when people, if I'm speaking at something or something, they go, oh, so tell me, what happened since you came up on mindfulness? And I know they're looking for the hero's journey, and there isn't one. There's just curiosity. It was curiosity. Yep. So it's a model that we hunger for. If you listen to speakers, majority of them will follow the hero's journey. This happened, I had this disease, this big challenge. Then I conquered it, and I've learned this, and I'm sharing that with you. Yeah? That's what we all want.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just made up and there actually isn't a freaking story, or it's so minute you go, really? You're really milking that one.
Yeah. Well, I would say to any of you listening today to have a think about your own hero's journey, if you're on one now, or hero's journeys you've been on throughout your life, and see how you got through that, and see what it is that I suppose that you want to do to find your bliss, because that will lead you on possibly a new journey.
Yeah, and I love that, Mel. And I also, I think we can ask ourselves, have I been called? Am I being called? And am I consistently drinking too much Netflix, busying myself to actually hear the call?
Yes, I like that. I like Netflix too, but
I know there's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah.
sometimes it camouflages. We distract ourselves to actually hear our calling. I think I definitely do at times.
Yeah. So get quiet, listen to your heart.
Yeah. Follow your
bliss.
Right? It'll take you there.
It'll take you on a whole other new journey, and who knows where you'll end up.
Yeah, but your heart will be open, and that's what we all really want.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I would say if you please reach out and share on social media, or Melissa at thesistercode.com, or you can send me an Instagram message and share with me how you, or a hero's journey that you've been on.
Yeah, that would be exciting to hear.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hey Soul Sister with Mel Histon. What would help you on your crazy life journey? Email Melissa at thesistercode.com.